refined our thinking about what is it we're trying to do. We all remember Cloud First and the 25-point plan. A lot of good ideas, a lot of good concepts, but I think what I saw personally with the digital government strategy is in many ways it helped unify many of the things that we're trying to do around mobility, about information, about architecture, about information. And I think that really helped me personally rethink and refine what we're trying to do. Again, we're not just focused on mobility, we're not just focused on developing apps. There's a reason why we're doing this. Cloud is important, it's a major component of it, but it helped create, in my view, a more holistic view of really what we're trying to attempt.
Well, I think pieces of the digital government strategy, HHS has a very good story to tell. We've been very successful over the past few years, particularly in the world of open data. So digital government strategy, in effect, puts a marker out there and says, you've done well, HHS, in our domain, but you can do better, and this is where you need to aspire to. And it's pulling all those pieces together, so it's not just about open data, it's also about making sure that data has meaning and is able to be shared. It's making sure that can be seen on any platform. It's pulling that all together. So we have this great foundation to begin with at HHS, but it challenges us to do even better.
Yeah, you know, in conjunction with the digital strategy and the open data activities within the department, as you know, I lighted on earlier and all that, we're starting to come to grips with what data and content is and where's the appropriate delivery of that data and the content. You know, we, as a member of the CIO Council, we work closely with them at looking at the catalogs of where the mobile applications are, where the security reference models are for those activities, and we're good writers, and we plagiarize liberally from those activities. We're also, you know, embarking upon our own mobility strategy in regards to where digital services can be coming about. You know, it's interesting within the department, and I think probably some of the other departments too, is it also enables us to work closely not with people outside of the IT lane. And so we work a lot with the people that work within the web services. And so we're coming to grips as what does content management systems mean? What do they mean? What does open source activities like Drupal, what does that mean that we want to look at? Do we want to look at Drupal? Do we want to look at WordPress? Do we want to have some consistency on the approaches that we have? So we're very much enamored in embracing the digital strategy. It's 1 year. 1 year is always I don't think it's not going away, and so we're supporting and applauding that, and we're using the guidelines as we build it into the maturity of our organization.
So are there things that you're, you know, you could view it as a compliance exercise. There's these things that agencies are tasked with in the strategy. That's not really what you're talking about it. So what are you thinking about ways to move this forward now? I mean, Steve never talks about this as the digital strategy is over. The digital government strategy is over. It's the incubator. It's the jump start to get the cultural shift started. So are there things that you are thinking about internally now, or that you're hearing that others are talking about within the government about how do we take the next step? You know, open data policy is part of that, but it's more than just that, I think. Would you agree?
Yes.
Excellent. Next question.
But it's rather interesting. I think OMB has an unfortunate history of coming up with good ideas and then moving on to the next big idea. Mm-hmm. We have Vivek's 25-point plan. We have digital government strategy. We need OMB to stay focused on these things for a few years because change doesn't happen in 1 or 2 years in government. We all know that. So if we can ensure, to Steve's point, digital government strategy isn't going away, that portfolio stat, that digital government strategy, that the 25-point plan all remain relevant 5 years from now, I think we'll begin to drive the change in our agencies that these things were intended to do.
The one thing to think about, and I've said this in different forums within the agency and outside, I don't want to do this for OMB. Ultimately, I mean, if OMB was, you know, quiet for the next year, we would be doing this because it's important to our agency and what we do.
And then OMB can claim success.
But it is not about OMB. We shouldn't be doing this because OMB is saying, hey, here's this wonderful thing to do. We should be doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I'm bound by the simplicity of the number of fingers on my hand, so I look at what I think a CIO should be having some insight into, and it's I just do it 3 things. One is you know, as stewards of the taxpayers' money and all that, is we don't want to assure that all the applicable laws and regulations are adhered to. And that's a lot of good ways of mitigating the risk. So it's about how we do with the compliance and the oversight activities. You know, the second area is with infrastructure. It is, as you call it, the commoditization of a lot of the types of things, whether it's the desktops or the networks. And the third area, which is, you know, which was the inspiration of Klinger-Cohen in the first place about information, you know, and over 17 years it became technology, but it is coming to grips with information, which is the content and the data. And, you know, where 10 years ago, I was a fervent John Zachman devotee of enterprise architecture and all that. I saw where some of the steps that where it went to. We're revitalizing architecture in our world and using architecture and all that to come to grips with what it is in this mobile era, what it is when people want to have data and content anywhere, anytime, at something, a viewing or an interface that's to their choosing. And so this is where we're focusing a lot on some of the efforts lately.
Someone mentioned to me earlier, we've also, another topic we've talked a lot the last 2 days, but haven't really gotten deep into it, is sequester. So I'm wondering about, have you found the portfolio stat process to be a tool in your toolkit to deal with sequester? Is it unrelated? And what sorts of, you know, some of the, at least the national media attention on sequester has died down. What's the ongoing impact at your agency?
You want me to take that? Because as Rich, I like Rich from the last panel, all that, you know, when you go to hearings, it's really to lay under the bus, and so.
You have a recent experience with that, don't you, Bernie?
I do. So the tire marks are just getting off. I don't want to be too, I tell my team and all that, these are the good days and all of that. You know, the government went through a period of tremendous growth, especially in the last 10 years and all that, with unfettered, mad spending and all that. And, you know, now it's time to call it home. And so we're going to go through several more years of retrenchment in terms of overall, and then for individual agencies and individual programs, of significant retrenchment. Now, is it the pain sufficient and all that for people that want to recomport themselves in terms of the way that they do business? I don't know. We are dealing with the aspects of sequestration. We're planning for the 14s and the 15 budget years and all of that, which, you know, whether it's a guidance of 5% reductions, 10% reductions, and on top of all these other types of things. So we're starting to brace for those things. We're starting to look at some of the unpleasant consequences of some of those activities that we're doing on there, and we're fully looking at that. We haven't, within the department, though, quite made the link between the impacts of the first of 8 rolling thunder sequestrations and, you know, where portfolio stat is. And I think GSA has their portfolio stat coming up. We've worked closely with the OMB team in terms of the gathering of evidence, an attempt to go from a fact-based perspective on the state of our affairs. And so we'll be enjoying our portfolio stat in July. I can state, though, that some reservations I have with portfolio stat goes back to what our authoritative sources of information are. And we are very hard-pressed within the department, whilst we have authoritative sources of information, they might be one particular prism of what is that asset or what is that inventory, what is it that you have there. And if we're going to be using one particular source that's informed on the portfolio stat, is the data quality and all of that is where we might have some spirited discussion with our colleagues on OMB. Overall, though, portfolio stat I do support. I've done that publicly and within the team and all that. It's a good approach of where we need to go. We need to start being able to come up with a valid basis of measurements about how well we're performing in comparison to others. I see this as the first, I mean, I know it's the second year, but it's what I've seen to date is this a very mature. Last year was very conversational in terms of the portfolio stat. And this way we're trying to come to grips with, well, this is what we're kind of seeing. How do you think about that? And I do know as the iteration, it's going to be an iterative type of activity. I know as it proceeds forth, it'll get even better and all of that. One day, it'll be ideal for decision support types of tools to help inform agencies in the U.S. government about where we need to go.
Okay.
Frank, Darren, do you
No,
agree or disagree?
I do, but I guess when I look at sequester, I look at portfolio stat, frankly, I look at the budget situation we're all in. I mean, you could look at it one of two ways. You could look at it as an opportunity or a threat. I want to look at it as an opportunity, and frankly, the reason I say that is it's the burning platform, and it gives us the ability to change, I'm going to get in trouble for this, bad behavior that has been enabled through either growing budgets or relatively flat budgets. This is our golden opportunity to finally correct some things that have been going on for years, whether it's the duplicative systems, the multiple versions of authoritative data sources, and get into commodities and really maybe reset some things.
Yeah, I guess I'd agree with all of that with one additional thought. Sequestration is by appropriation. And when you're dealing in a large, complex organization, there are appropriations that are being cut 5%, where it's making a hell of a significant dent in that organization's ability to operate. And those organizations are probably going to be more receptive to the extent that they can to the learnings that portfolio stat delivers. Other organizations, though, are able to eat the 5%, and it's not a significant impact on them. So portfolio stat isn't causing them to rethink how they're spending their money.
Because they have plenty of money.
Well,
None of these
I didn't say that.
offices are at
I didn't say
HHS, right?
They have flexibilities.
Right. That's
spending
the right term.
flexibilities.
Let me ask one more question, and then we'll open it up so that all of you who have burning questions for our 3 CIOs can ask them. What's the favorite part of your job? What gets you out of bed in the morning? All right, thanks for coming to the boot camp, everybody.
I'm a morning person.
Biological clock
Yeah.
that just says.
No, I think the first thing that I thought of is the staff. I think that we've got a really amazing group of folks that are an organization with a lot of great ideas. And for those that attended the discussion about mobility and tablets, the energy you saw from some of the folks that I had there helping us to present with me, that's the energy that I want to see burning through the organization. And I want to be able to empower it and promote it and encourage it. But I know in my heart there's a lot of really intelligent, bright, and innovative people, and I want to continue to nurture that.
I guess there are actually, believe it or not, multiple things that get me out of bed in the morning. Not the least of which is the alarm, but but I think the mission is probably the big driver. It's, each of us has a wonderful mission. That's why we're in public service, and that's why the people we work with are driven too by this. I sat on this stage a year ago. In fact, I think it was probably the same day, last day of Supreme Court session.
That's correct, actually.
And last year on this date, the Supreme Court announced that the Affordable Care Act was going to stand.
That's correct.
And that really made our mission even more exciting than in the weeks leading up to that decision, and the uncertainty that drove. The downside of that is we now need to deliver on the Affordable Care Act. We have to get the health insurance exchanges up and operating by October. We have a few more months to go.
I mean, as the waker-upper, for me I look forward to working and collaborating and engaging and nurturing and having robust dialogue with a wonderful team with whom I have a pleasure and the honor to work with, so that we can focus on making it a better Department of the Interior, as well as transforming the way that we deliver services to the Department of the Interior. All of that. It's very simple and all that, but I'm blessed by wonderful people, blessed by a wonderful mission, and I'm also blessed by the wonderful opportunities that we have to deliver technology in a different manner.
Great. Okay. I noticed none of you said the power, influence, or paycheck, so we'll check those off the list and move on.
Pay raises.
The year-over-year increases, yes. All right. Who would like to ask a question? I was going to do it Oprah style, like the last panel where I came around with the microphone, which I can do if people they like that format. Yes, go ahead.
you guys have any practical suggestions that either you've done or the staff of yours have done to break that down and form a partnership with other organizations?
I think birth order is very important. I will tell you within the, we did assign a secretarial order. I'm not going to go Edith Piaf on some activities, but I will say that on our biggest challenge is working with, we call them bureaus, I don't like to call them components, is within their bureaus and our agencies, is the need of a continuous dialogue. And then I also see, and it's a work in progress on some areas, it is bringing in the bureau representatives into the service areas that we're standing up to deliver from an enterprise, as well as helping have those bureau entities help define for us what should stay in the bureaus. Now, we are basing our aspects of how we're embarking upon the business change that we call IT, is we saying the primacy of the talent is resident within the Department of the Interior. We're not going to do a lot of rent-a-brains or bring in massive systems integrators or anything else like that. We are going to rely upon the talents, the skills, and the aspirations within the employees of the Department of the Interior. It's a work in progress, as I said, but we try continuously to have updates with them. I have weekly phone calls with our subcomponents. We have off-sites with them, even last week where there was a 3-day off-site with our bureaus and all that, is because of even the budget situation is so dire. One of them even proffered to spend money for us to go to another off-site, so that we could. Well, I thought that's fairly sweet. If you pay, that means you're pretty earnest about these things, so that we could have some fairly articulate dialogues. In our bureau, in our agency, the department and all that, is because we did not do a massive rip the Band-Aid off of absorbing everything all at once and all that, we're taking a measured, staggered approach. And a lot of times with the measured, staggered approach and all that, it causes a lot of angst and anxiety. And so we're trying to do our best at the department level is to create one-to-one relationships either with their senior people, or actually we're even creating the one-to-one relationships with the people that might have the technical dispositions and the skills to participate on the teams. This is all tremendous change management activities. You can never over-communicate. You can never try to concentrate on those softer skills. I won't say that we've done the greatest job in the world, but every day we're attuned to those things. I've even set up a separate group within our department and all that is of focusing on change management and strategic communications. And the two central elements in all that is to try to keep people up to date in terms of the progress or the engagement or invitations to participate in a particular enterprise-wide endeavor, or to help us out with what makes sense about what we're trying to consolidate or deliver as an alternate service.
Bernie, how many bureaus do you have?
Pardon?
How many bureaus do you have?
We have about 12.
Okay.
We're going through many M&As and everything else like that within that. So, but we've got about 12 core bureaus and offices. There's not, unlike some departments, we don't have really truly big dogs and all of that. They all tend to be in the 5 to 20,000 range, people range and all of that.
Sorry, Frank.
Well, it's interesting. Before I came into government, the IT guys in the organizations that I worked in were seen as the problem solvers. You had a problem, you went to IT and you said, help me solve this problem. Help me do something I don't know how to do. In government, I guess we could say, in my opinion, the problem has been the appropriations process, and that's led to this organization where the money goes directly to the bureaus or the components or whatever we call it. And ultimately, you look at the central CIO as being the boogeyman. We're not, believe it or not. We don't have to be. So my suggestion to you, if we're thinking about something specific, is reach out to your CIO, say, I've got a problem, can you help me solve it? And look for something that's going to be a win-win, something they can help you do that you couldn't do on your own. And you'll walk away building trust in that relationship.
Yeah, I actually, that's making me think of something Luke said yesterday. Luke McCormick, who's the Justice CIO, talked yesterday in his keynote about, and I may be getting some of the details wrong on this, but he's kind of had some of his components lead some of the initiatives to develop one aspect of a commodity IT solution for the entire agency. You can ask him how he's done that, or I can put you in touch with his staff. But he's basically said, okay, well, I don't know if he's done it with the FBI per se, but he says, Customs and Border Patrol, you're in charge of figuring out how to get standard configuration for our desktop computers, and we're gonna do it across justice. Like, report back to me in a month, kind of things. And I don't think he frames it like you're reporting to me. I think he says, like, we want you to guide the vision for our agency on this issue. And I think that's been successful for him in trying to develop more of a community feel rather than you have to do what I say, even though that's not really true type of feeling. So Darren.
I had jotted down right after Adam had asked the question, I wrote down a bunch of things that I thought, and I've already heard it. Trust, you got to be able to build that trust both ways. Communications, change management. We've learned a lot about the change management concepts and why that's vitally important. But I'd come back to actually I'm going to build on communications. It's not just the openness and the transparency and the regularity of how you communicate and when you communicate and what you're communicating, but it's also listening too. Again, it's the soft skills. It's the active listening. You're demonstrating that you actually hear what their concerns are, and you dive deeper into, okay, let me understand why you have that concern. Or they can also ask why we're trying to move in that direction. The last thing I want to suggest, and this is something NRC does a really neat job about, not necessarily so in agencies I've worked at before, are the concepts of rotations and details. And I know we do a lot of support for OMB. You get a really wonderful perspective of what the landscape is, what the issues are, when you get to live on that side, what those issues are. And I know at agencies I've worked at previously, to be able to get on a rotation to one of the bureaus or vice versa was very rare. You know, heck, if you're ever going to go, you're here. At the NRC, we promote that, and that's one of the things that we very much encourage. You don't truly understand until you're living on that other side. And that's a very practical thing. Culturally, not every organization accepts that or does that, but it's a really neat thing to do.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Yes. Did everybody hear that? Question was about promoting morale within your agency and organizations, and
I think the first thing that ties into what Frank talks about is the connection with the mission, that what those individuals are doing are making a difference, that they actually have a relevance and a meaning and impact on what we do as an organization. That is important, and continue to find ways to demonstrate that and ensure that your employees again, have relevant, meaningful work to do. The other one is simply saying thank you and recognizing the folks. It's a tough environment to work in with everything from, you all know it, I'm not going to repeat it, but thanking them is probably the best thing you can do and one of the most important things you can do.
Within our department, what is, I think one of the panels from earlier this morning and all that is one of my senior leaders and all that, she's from an HR background. So to me, people are the most important element of any organization. I'm not a tool geek person or a business process person and all that. It's all about the people. We are firmly committed to creating an organization of making it an employer of choice. And I do have like an SES CDP candidate that's from OPM that is helping us out about what steps that we need to do to make us an employee of choice. And we're also merging a significant element of from another organization within the department of a couple hundred people over the summertime. So this is where we're re-engaging with change management and communications. But some of the things in the absence of like monetary awards, what are we going to do for employee of choice? So we're doing things like, I don't know about you guys, I'm blessed by having 44 unions in the department. So we try to create relationships with every one of them. But we want to pay special attention to LR issues. Okay, that's a separate stream where my person, all that, she works on those types of things. I also have Indian preference type of activities that I have to be conscious of. We're setting up a employee council, which will be representative of the different skills or geographic locations of the employees, and they'll meet once a quarter, and we're going to align that with when we have our senior leadership team meeting, so that they can say, oh, hi Larry, hi Bernie, and we'll give them what our visions are and things like that, but the direct one engagement on there. We're also actively looking at is the employees of the month and the employees of the quarter. Now, as I talked about earlier, we're following like a balanced scorecard type of approach. And there's a thing within the balanced scorecard approach where you got your mission and you've got your vision, but then you also have the values. And so there are values, and we've got about 6 or 7 values within that we say we want to have OCIO employees imbued with. And so there's openness, respect for diversity, integrity, those types of things. And so we're going to look at these things where these monthly employee of the month or employee of the quarter is, how well are they hitting 4 of the 6 values that we hit? And they'll be nominated by their supervisors on those particular activities. We're also, as what Darren's talking about, is we're looking at the active engagement of rotation. As it is with an OCIO, is I already have 40 detailees from the bureaus and all of that. So every time we get an opening, we get a lot of candidates applying from within the department for those things. But we're looking at rotations in terms of, okay, someone works on our policy and compliance side, looks at the Privacy Acts or the FOIA or how we're doing with capital planning, and let's say, well, why don't you maybe try working in a service tower area and looking at how in terms of the customer engagement. So we're looking at that particular aspect. Also, because I am a baby boomer and all that, we're looking at where we can go with succession planning and all that, is who are we grooming and all that to follow in the lead of our senior leaders and all that once we go on to a different opportunity. We're also looking at job shadowing as well with emergent leaders or just employees from within the OCIO, is just to follow whether a group or to follow some of our senior leaders or me and all that about what it is about the daily things that we're confronting and all that to help them grow and all that. So we're building there's about 10 to 12 different things that we're looking at is how we can make this the OCIO an employer of choice, and they're very firmly rooted in, I don't want to use human capital, but very strong people, human relations type of activities, and I'm being formed by the folks that are within me, and then some of our SCS CDP candidates and some OPM type of support and all that, is that we're taking these steps on there. Change is very hard in the department, and we want to make sure that whoever comes into our OCIO group and all that is welcomed and has an opportunity that if they want to grow their careers, that they can, or they have an opportunity to become extremely proficient in a particular area, that they'll be able to have that.
Are any of you asking them what would improve their morale?
That's part of the aspects of doing that. Part of it is taking them to lunch. We have lots of fun, but it is debilitating with the morales. We're looking at is doing the lunch things, doing the simple, I think, use. We do the town halls, the virtual town halls and all of that to say, we care about you, we're concerned with you. We do pay some attention and all that to, in the light of, we are worried a little about sequestration and all that, is looking at certain employees that might have needed a little help in some areas.
Mm-hmm. Frank?
Well, I think for the most part, salary isn't what brought any of us into government service. So, not getting 2% a year as a COLA, it's more of an insult than a, something that really hits the bottom line. It's not to say we all don't need it because prices are going up. But on the other hand, what we really need to do is what my colleagues have talked about, which is recognition and thank you. And one thing that we're trying to do some of is letting employees run with ideas where they think they can make a difference, where they think they can do something interesting that improves the Department of Health and Human Services. That's why people came into government service, I think, to make a difference. So if we let them run with their ideas, that's the greatest recognition of all.
Chuck?
Just one idea to throw out for the forum here. It seems like public employees are getting beaten pretty hard in the media. And, I don't know that any of the agencies are allowed to, in an organized manner, ask its staff to write letters to the editor of newspapers and things like that. But I certainly think that that is one way to get the word out of the fine work that is being done every day of the year by all these employees, is that you tell a little story, how you've accomplished something at your agency, You know, it doesn't have to reveal any confidences. It's just a nice little story that you share and, you know, just get it out there. Because we're losing the war for the public's appreciation of the work we do every day, and it's clear in Congress that we're losing it. So let's push back a little.
You guys have thoughts? Can you get your public affairs offices on that now?